confirmed from just the one state. While joining our conversation this morning is my good friend Otuekon Franklin Isong. Good morning.
Good morning, Brian. Good to be here.
Well, nice to always have you on the show.
Thank you.
Let's quickly take your reactions to Decision 2023, the announcement from the INEC chairman, before we look at the papers this morning. What's your reaction?
Well, I have followed actively political activities and Nigerian elections from 1993, and I have been an observer and a monitor since 1999 till date. This will be the 7th elections that I have been very closely involved. I want to speak based on the reactions that trailed the process that led to the collation of results. Going by the INEC timetable, by the INEC guidelines, and going by the Electoral Act, Section 60, subsection 5, and going by the INEC regulations, I think regulation number 38 or thereabout, that clearly stipulates that election result will be transmitted to the INEC election viewing portal from the polling unit. This did not happen. It never happened. I believe, and I strongly do so because I know that Nigerians, especially the young ones who came out en masse to participate in the just concluded presidential election, had confidence in the promises made by the electoral umpire, the INEC, especially when the INEC national chairman went to the Chatham House and re-emphasized and reassured the world that elections this time around wasn't going to be the normal, the usual, manual collation and manual movement of election results. But what we later saw, even when there were, speculations that INEC was going to jettison the beavers and the IRF portal, INEC national chairman came out, that should be about 2 weeks ago, to reassure Nigerians and dismiss that speculations as mere rumors and reassured and rekindled the hopes of Nigerians that perhaps had increased the number of voters who came out to register for the elections. That also increased the number of registered voters who went out to get the PVCs. From the report, my organization, the Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network, gathered, the portal, the INEC election result viewing portal, did not, display these materials, this result, because this result were not transmitted. From our interactions also with some of the INEC officials and with some of the people who participated at the poll, like the ad hoc staffs, we got several versions of, call it, instructions that they got. Some said they were not given the PIN code to be able to access the INEC result viewing portal. Some also said that they were instructed that at a particular time they will key in the PIN. A particular report that we gathered, that we received, showed that the National Assembly results were transmitted, but that of the presidential result wasn't transmitted. And so with all of this, because we as civil society groups, as pro-democracy group, we're not interested in the outcome, but we're interested in the process. Because for us, it is the process that will culminate into the outcome. And so if you have a faulty process, you cannot have a better outcome, a right outcome. So with all of these observations, the reactions that trailed out, you saw the staging of walkout on the national chairman at the National Coalition Center. You saw the press conferences by the political parties that were aggrieved and the party that is leading and the rest of it, and reactions from several groups. I think that for me, I feel I'm disappointed in INEC that INEC did not stuck to her guns, that INEC came out with a press statement to overrule itself. Because I was here when we were doing the collation, I was here to also review the process, and we saw that INEC came out with a press statement to overrule itself and also overrule the Electoral Act that is the guide, and including INEC timetable, INEC guidelines and regulation was overruled by INEC press statement that the INEC result viewing portal has been malfunctioned, has been is not functioning, and all those stuff. And this gave a very serious concern as to the credibility of the election and the outcome of it. We saw in some of the instances we've seen, you could see the INEC officials were not even able to handle the beavers. Election that my group monitored in Akwa Ibom, for instance, they got several reports of where the INEC officials came to the polling unit late arrival of materials, late deployment of INEC officials. The list of the ad hoc staff were pasted that early morning of election day at the INEC headquarters. And so some persons who were to move to particular areas got a phone call that your name is out and you are posted to so area, and this person perhaps were in their home. They have to come back to you to be able to be mobilized to go to those locations. That led to the delay. And in some cases, in some instances, like we have in Pune Unit 15, that is Uyo Urban in Jubilee Primary School, Uyo Urban. We saw where the over 700 voters went out there, waited from 7:30 till 1:45 p.m. when the INEC official just trailed in, and they came with the wrong beaver. They tried the beavers. They tried to accredit people. The beavers machine wasn't functioning because it wasn't meant for that particular polling unit. And so what they brought was a machine that was meant for polling unit 16. They brought it for polling unit 15. And while that was happening, the voters were already apprehensive and there was tension. So what happened now, some of the voters now offered to take the man for safety. They took him to the INEC headquarters in the local government close to Ikorok Banabia, where the technical staff of INEC had to assure that the voters should go home and come back on Sunday, that the error will be corrected. On Sunday morning, these people trooped out there from 7:30, waited till 3 p.m. Our team went there to also see if they have been, if the fault had been corrected. Nothing, nobody was seen. No INEC staff came to that place to address them. They waited till 4, they left. So the whole of those persons did not cast their vote. You have several of such instances. So with all of this, I think that the process that led to the emergence of the president-elect was marred with grave, flaws that has never happened before. Even where INEC will come out and overrule its own self, changing the goalpost in the middle of the game, making the whole thing look like a joke. Like INEC will come and sit and tell the whole world that we have to adjourn because we don't have the coalition officers coming. When this thing ought to be done, INEC has said that they have done a test run in the Ekiti state election and in Osun state election that the results were displayed at the portal. You just stay in your house and you got it. But it took INEC more than 3-4 days to come out with the president-elect. This wasn't what we were told ab initio. So for me, I think INEC changed the rule in the middle of the game. INEC breached the procedure, revised its own self, and gave us what we saw. And that was what led to all these reactions. So what I will say is that election has been conducted. Someone has been declared the winner, president-elect. the election process also include litigation. I am an advocate of due process. I'm an advocate of fairness, of equity. I will believe that the next process is the litigation that will now follow suit. And I want to, at this point now, the battle should shift to the courtrooms where the judges and the lawyers will ask INEC to bring forth her materials and then for auditing. Because like I have said before, and I keep on saying, INEC is the examiner. We, the people, we the CSO, the civil society groups, and the judges are the ones that will now examine and score INEC. My own assessment, my group assessment is that INEC didn't do well, and there is need for an improved, an improvement to be done in the forthcoming election that we are having on 11th. Now we have done this one, it's gone. INEC must have learned those mistakes. INEC must have seen where it has lapses, where it did not do well. We believe that going forward, election that we're having on the 11th, that those lapses would have been taken care of. And we don't want to hear another apology from INEC or the SEFA is not working, the IRF portal is not working. These are not what we will hear, because INEC now have more than 10 days to begin to correct those things that were, are noticed in the just concluded poll.
Now, you've also re-echoed some of the views as captured by different observers, including the European Union and the US observers, and most Nigerians also took to social media to field in reports from their experiences while visiting INEC's IREF portal. But now we have another elections on the 11th of March. With the foreseen litigations like you talk about it, would you rather that we wait till the next elections on the 11th of March before these litigations begin and the auditing of INEC's results, or should we have them in a build-up to that election?
Well, I think there is this notion that Nigerian election is normally 15% voters, 25% security operatives, 30% INEC, and then the remaining percentage, if you add 15 and 25, that is 40, then you have 30%, that is 60, that is 70. The remaining 30% is meant for the judiciary. So this is what is actually playing out. Instead of the voters having 40%, the voters now have 15%. And so this is what has played out. The remaining thing now, if you check it, out of 100%, 15% goes to the voter, 25% goes to security agencies, then 30% goes to INEC that announced, because I know a particular senator who will normally in the East who will tell INEC, just declare me the winner, let them go to court. So this is what has happened. What has happened is INEC has just declared someone the winner. All aggrieved parties should go to court, and the court now has the 30% role to play, which ought not to be. It ought to be like what happened, in election that brought in President Buhari in 2015, where the sitting president immediately called the president-elect, and they congratulated him for emerging, because seeing the process, it was somehow fair, and it didn't give room for doubt and for serious litigation. I recall the election of 2019, the major bone of contention at the court, at the appeal court and the Supreme Court, was the issue of INEC SEFA. I remember that Atiku Abubakar, who was the candidate, of the PDP, went to court, and up to that level, they even produced what they gather as the INEC SEFA, result from the INEC SEFA before the court. But INEC went there and disowned those materials as fake. So what we are having today is where the powers to declare who is the president of Nigeria now lies in the hands of the court, no longer the voters. So all the billion that was voted out, over 400 billion that was voted out for the election, has just been a waste. A waste in the sense that Nigerian voters did not actually expressed their mandate by virtue of what we saw. You could see a lady that was beaten But you see the blood stain on her. With the bandage, she went and still cast her vote, believing in the process as was assured. You could see vote buying. I saw people who carried money to polling units from what we saw, and then the money were taken away from people by people who were there. We saw so many things happened that we believe had never happened before in the history of Nigerian democracy. So we think that the process that has produced the president-elect was marred with a lot of breaches and infractions. So we think that right now the powers of the court will now be tested. And I believe also that the court will now examine the INEC books, examine the Electoral Act, the Constitution, and considering all documents that will be before it to make pronouncement. And if that is done, the powers of the Nigerian electorate has now been reverted to the court, which ought not to be so. Can't we have an election where we will have less litigation, where the loser will just call the winner and say, I congratulate you, and then you've tried. Can't we have it in Nigeria? But right now, what we see, you will see that in the next 1 year, 6 months, you would see the president-elect, when he is sworn in, going to battle in court. And that will be a lot of distraction that will take place. He will be distracted in the process. He will not be able to concentrate in governance. So this is what we are saying. So that is why I felt that we should get to a point where the electorate will be allowed the opportunity to elect who they think should be their president, instead of the court making the pronouncement for us.
Well, this is a sentiment that Vincent Kalu, yesterday guest on the program, also shared, the role of the Supreme Courts and election tribunals in deciding a democratic process whereby irregularities and malpractices have been recorded. Well, if you're just joining the show, you're watching ABN TV live on The Breakfast Show with our focus still on mandate 2023. Well, moments after the announcement of the final results collated by the INEC chairman, declaring Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as Nigeria's president-elect. Well, there's supposed to be a presentation of results, returning certificates to the president and VP-elect later at 3 p.m. today. But our focus in the next 30 minutes will be look at the major stories leading the dailies in Nigeria this morning. 4 of the lead newspapers in Nigeria captured their lead stories around the emergence of Tinubu as Nigeria's president-elect. And we begin with a look at the Nigerian Tribune this morning, one of those 4 newspapers with a similar lead story. Well, on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning is the story with a map and a graphical representation of how the votes were shared following the victory that brought Tinubu as Nigeria's president-elect. It does lead with the story, Tinubu is president-elect. Tinubu is president-elect. Strap lines underneath that read, INEC declares him winner at 4:10 a.m. INEC declares him winner at 4:10 a.m. to receive certificate of return 3 p.m. today. Supporters flood his Abuja house. APC candidate garners 8,794,726 votes. Victorious in 12 states, Atiku gets 6.9 million votes, wins 12 states. Obi gets 6.1 billion, tops in 11 states plus the FCT. Kwankwaso wins 1 state. Away from the Nigerian Tribune, but still with a similar lead story, we go to the Nation newspaper this morning. Well, on the Nation newspaper this morning, just above the masthead, set in columns on the headers. First is 10 Senates, APC wins 51 seats. 10th Senate, APC wins 51 seats. PDP 27, LP 5, SDP 2, YPP 1, and NPP 1. Polls cancellation call. Federal government, eminent Nigerians lambast Obasanjo. Polls cancellation. Federal government, eminent Nigerians lambast Obasanjo. More on that can be seen on pages 2 and 3 of The Nation. Underneath the masthead is the lead story. Tinubu is president-elect, very similar to that of the Nigerian Tribune. Strap lines underneath that reads, INEC declares APC candidate winner with 8,794,726 votes to get certificate of return at 3 p.m. It also goes to show a tabular form of the states and how the different four leading political parties fared in the collation of that result. And one of the third newspapers with quite the similarity in headlines this morning is the Guardian newspaper. On the front page of the Guardian this morning, quite similar to the first two we've looked at, the Guardian captures it from the angle like Otuekong Franklin Inson stated, amidst protests. It says, amidst protests, INEC declares Tinubu winner. Strap lines underneath that read, comply with electoral laws on election collation. Jonathan, West African leaders tell INEC. Comply with electoral laws on results collation. Jonathan, West African leaders tell INEC. PDP LP insist on cancellation of polls. Okoa Dati accuse INEC chairman of playing to the predetermined scripts. Accuse INEC chairman of playing to the predetermined scripts. INEC returns Nigeria to pre-2015 era, says NPP. Halt results collation now. CUPP tells INEC. Emulate Jonathan. Congratulates Tinubu now. APC tells Atiku Obi. Obi wins FCT. Raises questions about possible runoff. 25% in FCT not needed to be declared president, says Falana. Calls for Yakubu's resignation impossible and misplaced, says INEC. Tinubu files suits to stop PDP LP from stopping collation. And there's an advertorial right there talking about a campaign for the members' House of Representatives. Well, we'll talk about that much later. But our focus now would still be to pick up some of the strap lines here. And I would like to shift away from the presidential elections now and the results announced to look at the Senate, with APC winning majority seats in the Senate.
Well, I didn't see much controversy emanating from the National Assembly result. That is why I said that, in most areas that our men, my team, covered, the collation, the transmission of result was done through at the polling unit to the INEC result viewing portal. And so to that extent, there was no much controversy. And of course, APC is the ruling party. APC had much members, in the National Assembly. So one wouldn't expect anything less than that. If for anything, I would rather congratulate the other parties that have been able to come, like for example, the Labour Party, that never had much members in the National Assembly, having such a huge number, for me, is an applause. A particular House of Rep member that I want to also celebrate is one Okada rider, I think in Kaduna South, that emerged. And of course, if an Okada rider can emerge a House of Rep member elect, it shows you that the process for the National Assembly was a little bit, freer and fair, to the point that I was told the man only printed only one poster, where he was able to afford money to print just one poster, and he pasted it at the junction. He did not do much. So people who perhaps love his party, love the principle of his party, perhaps have to voted for him. So this is what we are saying. We want to look forward to when we will have the downtrodden risen to the high level, also be at the other spectrum of the divide, where you are also part of those that are making decisions to how things are run. I can tell you that particular Okada rider, who is now a House of Rep member elect, his philosophy will be hard to touch the lives of the downtrodden, because he has been there before, and he wouldn't forget his humble background. So to that extent, I want to congratulate all the winners for the National Assembly seats, and then for the House of Reps seats. And I look forward to seeing a more engaging and resourceful National Assembly. I look forward to seeing a National Assembly that will also come up with legislation that will better the lot of this country. And part of where we are today is caused by poor legislation. Look at, for example, the Electoral Act had several amendments because of the mischief, that I could call it mischief, because the lawmakers that also that did the drafting and passed it did not know that the act sought to exclude them from participating in the primaries of their party. It was after it was passed, you could see that it was only the ad hoc delegate that was later used, because the act says ad hoc delegates that are elected for the purpose of primaries are the ones that will vote. The statutory delegates, where they also are part of, did not vote. They shot themselves by their foot because of perhaps a mischief that they wanted to cure. Later became what barred them from participating at the primaries. And to this extent, I think that having people who are resourceful, who are intelligent, who understands the rudiment of legislation and lawmaking will actually help in boosting our development. You see, it is not just the government. The government in a democracy is not centered on the president and commander-in-chief, because if you have a robust legislature, they can offer the checks and balances that will also help. Even when you have a president that is dictatorial in his pursuit of making policies, if you have National Assembly that is constructive and that is more robust, they can engage the executive and be able to bring development to the people of their constituencies. I want to see those lawmakers who will be coming back home to do town hall meetings, to do constituency briefing, and also be able to articulate and assimilate what they are discussing. They will bring it back to their grassroots, to their constituency, and engage them. Have town hall meetings. I'm not saying come and give us money, come and share us a wrapper or give us rights. No, make good laws. Let there be National Assembly that is more of a pan-Nigerian and more of a pan-masses of the country. That would mean that for me will be one that will give us a more people-oriented government going forward.
Thank you very much. Otuekong Franklin Isong has made a case for an expansion away from the focus of the electorates on just the presidential elections and National Assembly elections, making a case for why it is important that even at the grassroots State House of Assembly elections and even gubernatorial elections, which we'll be talking about in a bit, should be the focus of the electorates. Because if the legislature at that level cannot formulate certain policies that will better the populace and our economy in Nigeria, it might not just be the work of one man at the helm of affairs in the country. We continue to look at some other news headlines making the papers this morning. And our next point of call is the Punch newspaper that has reported that some candidates have also made an attempt to discredit the National Assembly election results. On the Punch paper this morning, the front page of the Punch this morning does capture that above the masthead. It might be too little in print for you to see, but let me read that out for you. To your top right-hand corner, the columns on the Punch. The first one reads, polls. Fuel hits 300 naira per litre as marketers halt loading. Fuel hits 300 naira per litre as marketers halt loading. 36% of CBN anchors borrowers yet to repay loans. Uproar as candidates reject National Assembly polls results. Uproar as candidates reject National Assembly polls results. More on that is contained on page 12. Underneath the mastheads of the Punch, Tinubu in clear lead. Tinubu in clear lead. APC candidates filed to stop INEC. Others from halting collation. INEC insists election credible. Tells parties to seek legal redress. And there's a picture of the president-elect in the company of the West African Elders Forum, led by ECOWAS envoy, former President Goodluck Jonathan, on a visit to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And now to the New Telegraph. On the New Telegraph this morning, it does also capture some of the lead stories, but it also still talks about the palaver regarding the announcement of the collated results. On the New Telegraph, it leads with the story, results collation palaver. PDP, LP, ADC, and NPP call for fresh polls. Results collation palaver, PDP, LP, ADC, and NPP call for fresh polls. Now, still on the news of rejection of results, underneath the masthead, there are 4 columns there with different pictures. And the second one is our concern this morning, where it says that Rivers, INEC suspends results collation over threats on collation officers' life. We'll pick it up from there, Otuekon, frankly, Isong. Now, still about the transparency of the electoral process, these issues have been recorded and even captured on the New Telegraph. Threats to life. We've seen videos of some very gruesome pictures we cannot share with our viewers this morning of ad hoc staff and corps members being bitten. But still on this, results that have been halted in Rivers State over the threat to the life of a collation officer. How grievous is this to the free and fair nature of a democratic process such as elections?
I did not expect anything less from the Rivers State election. If you had followed my conversation on this matter, on the way the governor of Rivers State was going, I had said severally that the governor was simply, hitting up the polity in Rivers State and was stockpiling crisis. So the center of mayhem for this election was Lagos and Rivers State. I wept because I saw a particular video where a corps member was, I don't know whether he was shot, was shot, bleeding, and there's someone at the background was shouting at them, about 3 of them. A lady corps member, female corps member, was trying to explain, begging that they should not be killed. And this happened in Rivers State. I also saw another video where some corps members were, forcefully taken away. All this happened in Rivers State. I do not know why the governor of Rivers State will allow that to happen. Up till this moment, I have not read any statement. I don't know whether you have seen, Brian, from the Rivers State government, because fingers were pointed at the governor. And if fingers were pointed at the governor, and the governor who likes the press, who normally speak out, do press interviews, reaction and all that, has not come out to, to counter or to make any contrary statement to this effect, give more meaning to what those who speculate or those who had said that the governor was behind. I recall the APC also came up and said that the election of Rivers should be halted, results should be cancelled. The INEC reg also threatened, not to continue the announcement of the result because of the fear of his life. All this happened in Rivers State. This is the only state that we had the INEC reg threatening to discontinue the process because of the fear for his life. And all this, we have not heard the governor of Rivers State coming out to make any statement. I do not know whether he's unaware of all these reactions. I know he lives in the social media, he lives with the press, and he makes several press conferences before this particular election. So, having said this, I am surprised that that all this happened under the nose of the man who is fighting for justice, presumably fighting for equity, justice, and fair play, saying that there should be justice in his party. And if he is saying so, the process that brought in his candidate of his party for presidency was rigged in favor of the candidate, I do not believe that he could also allow such kind of rigging allegedly carried out by men of his government and under his watch. And up till this moment, we've not heard him speak about it. So what morality will he now have to speak about the process that led to his candidate emerging at the convention? What morality does he has to be talking about justice, fairness, and equity when election that happened under his watch was not free, fair, and credible? So it is a case of pot calling kettle black. So if he was rigged out, assuming he was rigged out in his party convention, and so it is, it is a game of intrigues. So he also came to his own state and also tried to carry out the same act. So for me, all this shows you the desperation that politicians have. So when you see them coming out to make promises, they paint a picture of being second to Christ, but in their hearts, they know what they have in mind. all the candidates of the parties have gone to Rivers State to campaign to meet with him. He was like a beautiful bride where everybody will go to lobby, go to talk to. All the candidates, apart from his candidate, which is Atiku Abubakar, other candidates have gone to him to talk to him. And he never, display any, sign that he was not in favor of any of them. So I would have thought that he would have allowed the process to play out and then let the winner of the poll in Rivers State becomes the winner. This will now go to show that there is need for the foreign observers to pay more attention in Rivers State as we move on to the next election, because if this is just for the National Assembly and the presidential election, we saw the kind of brigandage that we saw in Rivers State, then it now means that there is need for the world to focus attention in Lagos State and Rivers State as we move on to the governorship election, because that one has his own interest. He must ensure that his candidate will emerge, and I will do it at all costs. So there is need for attention to be paid to the poll that will be conducted on the 11th, especially to Rivers State and Lagos State, these two states that we had series of crises, even in Bayelsa, even in Edo State. These are states that we had series of crises. I will call on the international community to pay more attention on these states.
Well, the call on INEC and also observers for more attentions ahead of the gubernatorial elections and State House of Assembly elections scheduled for March 11, 2023, in line with the developments that trail the presidential and National Assembly elections, especially in River State, Bayelsa, and the states of Tuekong, Frank Isong has mentioned. Now, we're looking at a total of 9 newspapers this morning. We're left with the last 2 to go before we draw our conclusions. But on the last 2 newspaper, it also is more on the angles to calls for cancellation of the presidential election. The first of the 2 we're going to look at in conclusion is the Nigerian News Direct newspaper this morning. And on the Nigerian News Direct newspaper this morning, it also does talk about cancellation of elections as the catchphrase. In the lead story on the Nigerian News Direct this morning, it says cancellation of elections, tough outcome, frightens Jonathan, West African leaders. Cancellation of results, tough outcome, frightens Jonathan and West African leaders. Well, away from this, let's also quickly look at the Daily Independent, the last of which we're looking at this morning, and the lead story on the Daily Independent this morning. On the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, it leads with quite a similar but different headline story. It says, Jonathan, Mahama, West African leaders urge calm, rule of law. Jonathan, Mahama, West African elders urge calm, rule of law. It is saying that the West African leaders are calling for calm and following the rule of law. Any grievances should seek a redress. But with these issues on ground, do you think Nigerians would hearken to the call by the West African leaders and be calm and not resort to protest or even an escalation that might see us go into civil unrest?
No, there is no need. Election for National Assembly and presidency and the presidential election, is gone. The moment INEC declares the winner made his return, that is the end. What you need to do is to go to the tribunal to challenge the outcome. I would rather urge for restraint. I will also join among those to call on our youth who are aggrieved not to take to the street, not to protest, but rather allow the due process of law to follow after election. And Nigeria should still be there. Nigeria should still be stronger. We've learned our lessons. I think even the INEC chairman has also learned his lessons. And all those who have perpetrated this act have also seen the reactions that have trailed it. So I wouldn't join those who are saying the second option should be to go to the street. I would not also join those who are calling for cancellation of the election, because the election is, once the result is announced, you can go to court and follow through the process. They should also begin to learn to have confidence in our judiciary. But the truth is, the judiciary that we are having confidence, how assertive are they? Look at the president disobeying court order Today we heard the news of the president-elect running to the court to secure, to sought for order to restrain the other parties from compelling INEC to, halt the collation. Now, when he is sworn in eventually to become the president in charge of the country, we believe that he will be obeying court orders. Because now that he is not the president-elect, he has gone to court to seek for orders to restrain the other parties. When he is president-elect, when he's president and he's sworn in, the country, when there are issues that takes him to court, that take the government to court, and pronouncements are made by court, we expect him to also obey these court orders, to obey the court and allow the judiciary to have independence so that there will be need for the rule of law to prevail. By so doing, we'll be having a stronger democracy in Africa.
Thank you very much for your views on the show this morning.
Thank you so much, Brian.
All right, that's as much as we can take on the newspaper review segment. Remember, your comments, observations are also welcomed on the show. To do so, kindly drop a comment on our live stream on Facebook. But remember,